I love being the leader. And when you're an assistant director, you're really the voice and the leader of the set. And I know as the AD that I can control the vibe. So if I'm having a bad day and I'm barking at people all day long, I'm going to ruin a lot of people's mood. But if I'm upbeat, I'm making jokes, we're getting the job done, I have really good energy, I affect everybody because I am the voice and people are listening to me to make sure they know what to do.
Welcome to Global VID, a podcast about original TV and film productions and its international potential. I'm your host, Eric Y. Lapointe. Let's learn from each other and the experts within our field. Okay, so hello, Amber. How are you?
Hello, I'm good.
I'm really happy to have you here. And what inspires me about your story is that you really created your career from scratch. Not unlike a lot of my guests, but the way you did it was in a completely DIY fashion, something that I can relate to, given that I started in the music industry many years ago without any experience whatsoever. And I just kind of figured it out. So I'm always inspired by people like you. Super happy to have you on this show today.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to share my story.
So for those who don't know Amber Sherman, Amber M. Sherman, please introduce yourself a little bit.
So, hi, I'm Amber. I am an assistant director. I'm in the DGA, Directors Guild of America. I've been an AD for, I think, the past decade. I've been in the film industry since 2008. If I count some of the college years, I've been in it since 2005. So it's almost 18 years of film experience. I'm the founder of Beyond Film School, and I have a YouTube channel.
So we're going to talk about how you got into that specific role as an assistant director towards the end of this interview. You're also going to give us your top tips on how to get into the industry as well. Now we're going to talk about your background and how everything led to that. So you were born and raised in Buffalo, New York, not too far away from where I was raised in Mississauga, Ontario. Kind of neat, although I've never actually been in Buffalo. Isn't that weird?
Well, it's practically the same. It's fine. It's just across the river.
Right. So you started, what inspired you here in Buffalo, New York to get into the film industry?
I think looking at the film industry, and when people ask me this question, it's always a little weird because I never actually kind of looked at film as a career option for me. But my roots kind of come from photography. Okay. My parents both were really creative. I loved taking pictures. I was that little girl that was making her own backdrops with blankets and doing posing with my sister and stuff. So I kind of had my roots in photography, behind the camera, always wanting to take pictures. Went to college and did media studies and kind of just went with that. With my goal in mind was to be a director of photography, to be behind the camera, be a camera operator, and go that route. So then it kind of transitioned when I started to be an assistant camera, first AC, second AC, loading and all that stuff. And then I found the first AD position. and we, when you're on indie small budget things, you don't actually have every position. Sometimes they don't have ADs, they just have the director doing everything, or they have producers kind of doubling up on those small things. So you have 6 people on a crew and everyone's kind of doing everything. And I did that for commercials and small, little, the 48-hour film festival and stuff like that, where there wasn't really a first AD on set. And then I got on a bigger movie that came to Buffalo. It's called The David Dance. And I kind of owe a lot of my career to that movie because I saw first AD, first assistant director in action. And I was I want to be that guy. And some people are why did you make that transition when I was on my way up into the camera department? Because when you switch over from camera to the AD department, it's very rare. It's usually the other way around.
What were the first few projects you were doing in Buffalo before we talk about how you ended up in LA?
One of the first projects was a wine commercial. It was a one-day shoot. I was a camera assistant. I was helping this DP and he didn't talk the entire time. And it was kind of weird because I was how am I going to learn from a guy that does not talk to his camera assistants?
Wow.
So it was a wine commercial for, I think, Premier Wine or something, like way like 2006 or 2005 or something like that. And then my next thing after that was after I gained a little bit more experience just from that one commercial alone. I felt like I had learned so much just by watching everything. So then I got on a feature that shot on the weekends for a couple of months in the fall going into the winter. And I was like a grip, I was a camera assistant, I was a set PA. And then I like operated a camera for a couple of days. So one of my first things, and those two things, I believe, like the first one was like $50 a day and the other one was free. So I was like, I volunteered my time on the weekends and I took this movie and just went with it. I was like, I'm just going to keep going on as many projects as I can, paid or not.
And you were in college at this stage, or?
Yeah, I was in college in this stage. Yeah. So I was doing everything I could, like on my spring breaks, summer breaks, and weekends.
How did the transition to LA work?
So I went to college for media studies. I transferred schools, got into media production, and then I was editing and doing camera work, all these things. And I was like, what can I do to try and, travel or go somewhere, get out of Buffalo? I really wanted to get out of Buffalo. I felt like it was a little bit smaller and I wanted to get into a major film market. And I was obsessed with going to LA.
Like a lot of people.
Right. And California was like the golden thing for me. I was like, oh, I have to go to California because I obviously it's like the furthest place away. And I'm like, I wanted to go to California. And I graduated, I think, in 2008. And then I made the plan. I was like, okay, I'm going to apply for all these companies out there trying to work for a production company. And then I actually did get a job with this production company. I was going to be an associate producer or something like that, and got to LA. Everything fell through
okay.
as of course it's gonna, because I went there with a plan to work for this company. Like I tried to set myself up for like success and I was like, yeah, I have a job. It's going to be great. Turned out not being the case. And then I was like surviving in LA with trying to, I think I was like a studio photographer for like one of those like commercial photography companies, like in a mall or something like that. So I still was like relying on my photography roots, which was fine because I was like, yeah, photography, I still love that. There's nothing wrong with that. But it wasn't in film. It was really, really hard to break in. Like obviously at the time, Craigslist was a thing. And I remember one thing that one of my first ACs told me, like, because I was a second AC and he was like my first boss. And he was like, the Craigslist era, when you're in that, when you're like looking online for jobs, is like the hardest, suckiest thing because you're just like trying to apply for all the things. You're trying to just get any type of in that you can. And I really didn't get a lot. I got like, I think a reality show pilot for a couple weekends. I got like one day of this movie that I don't even remember that was shooting back then. And then I was like, let me try this set PA class. I did PA boot camp, just try and like get my networking. I was trying to meet as many people as possible. LA did not work out for me. Did not work out for me, but I forgot that I had applied to Princess Cruises to be a videographer on a cruise ship. And I did that for 2 years. And then after that, that's when I was like, okay, I got to go back to New York and get, even though I'm working with editing and working with camera, I'm not in the film industry. So I was like, okay, I got to get off this ship. I traveled for 2 years. I did it, went all over the world. It was great. But now I got to get back into, the real film industry.
So when did you finally make that decision? Okay, you know what? I'm going to move to New York.
Yeah, so I did 3 contracts and the last one was Australia, New Zealand. And I was like, I can't get better than that. I can't get better than Australia, New Zealand. And I went across the world and I went everywhere. So I was like, okay, I think I've had enough of a cruise ship. And in between contracts, you have a few months off.
Okay.
And every time I had a few months off, I would try and get on another film project and I would try to do another thing like while I was home. And it kind of was frustrating because every time I decided to do a new contract, I had a lot of people calling me to do another movie and I wasn't available. So the more and more that happened, the more and more I was like getting like serious FOMO. I was like, I'm missing all this stuff that can help my career. So I was like, okay, this is going to be the last one, just going to go for it. And then I moved to New York in 2012.
And was that around the same time that you started Beyond Film School on YouTube?
Oh man. So Beyond Film School is like this weird progression because I know that I wanted to continue making videos and not necessarily Beyond Film School. It was in there, but not like as a on purpose type thing. Because I was making videos and I was like doing videos as I went to try and, because there's other people like me trying to break in. I was trying to make as many things as possible. Like, there's got to be other people who can use this advice, because I didn't have resources like that to kind of refer to when I moved, or maybe I just wasn't looking in the right places or whatever. Because I knew there was definitely other people like me who were like, where do I go? What do I do? So everything that I learned, everything I did was like, I just threw it in a video and, hoped that it helped people. And then that gained traction. And I was like, maybe I should just kind of make this a thing. And then Beyond Film School kind of really came into like its own in 2016. So 4 years of like, a lot of back and forth and
posting videos and
right. A lot of random stuff is on my channel from that time. And then Beyond Film School kind of became the thing in 2016.
When the last time we spoke, you mentioned that you also built workshops at around the same time that around 2016, right?
Right. So I kind of went with the videos as much as possible, like how a movie is made, distribution 101, everything I learned, I tried to make a video. And then when I started to do more and more indie film work as a first AD, it became harder and harder to staff my shows with PAs.
Why is that?
I think it's because you have to rely on recommendations. A lot of the apps that they have now, like Crew Me Up and the Available app and certain websites they weren't a thing. So finding people, I always found them within my network. And then I was getting someone I didn't really know either. So I decided to start Beyond Film School, the set PA class, because one, it was going to help me staff my shows. Two, it was going to help people get into the film industry and get them lines on their resume and all that stuff. So those are two main reasons why I started the set PA class, because I get to meet the people and then if I want to hire them, I can put them on my set. So it was a way for me to kind of like get to know and open up my network of people without trying to rely on all the recommendations and the recommending that happens in the film industry. So that's kind of like why it started like twofold. Like, yes, I want to change people's lives, but also I'm like, I want to staff my shows.
Okay.
I was trying to like do like 2 for 1.
And probably in your case, you could find the people that were really hungry to be a PA.
Right, exactly. And I liked the way that I wanted to just give people a chance, because I feel like there's a huge barrier of entry when it comes to the film industry. Like, you have to know someone, you have to have an uncle or an aunt or something that is going to be, a producer or a first AD that's going to put you on the show. But first of all, like, no one likes nepotism in the industry anyways, even though that's like a major way to get in. It sucks, right? But I just wanted to like tell people and show people, like, I want to give you a chance. Like, I'm going to take all your background and everything I think I know about you, I'm going to put that to the side. And then I'm going to have you prove yourself in this. I'm going to give you the tools that you need. And if me and you mesh well, I can put you on set. But then also, if we don't, you're going to have the tools to go on some other set, and you're going to know how to enter the film industry that way. So it's kind of like, I didn't want to judge anyone for their background, their income, because income's a huge one. If you're not in the right income bracket, you're not in the right circles. So someone who's going from a low income background trying to get into film, it's like nearly impossible, if you're not doing like a Made in New York program or something like that. So I just wanted to create another opportunity for people to try and get in.
Let's move on in that case and transition over to your top tips to get into the industry, because it's a perfect transition. So what are your top tips? So what would be your first thing? So somebody who says, okay, I don't have any contacts.
Yeah, I got nothing, right?
And I want to get in. What's your number one tip?
The number one thing I want to tell people is that you have to talk to people. And people being the main thing. You got to talk to people. You got to talk to people that you don't know. You have to get very uncomfortable. You have to like get yourself out of your comfort zone and talk to people. And this could be at like workshops that you want to sign up for. And any workshop could be an improv, acting, could be like a producing workshop, or, go on Eventbrite, look at networking film events. Literally just put in film events or film networking events. There's going to be something for people who are trying to get in film. And a lot of those things they might be people on the same level, but even so, you don't know what opportunity can come from those things. So first thing is like, get out there, start meeting people that you don't know. You have to get out of your circle of people that you normally talk to. The next thing I feel like is kind of controversial now, because a lot of people don't like using Facebook. And I implore everyone that listens to this, or everyone that takes one of my classes or anything like that, and I tell them, get on Facebook groups. Facebook groups are like the number one way to get jobs. Like, NYC filmmakers. There's probably a Toronto filmmakers. There's probably like a Vancouver filmmakers, or, Vancouver film jobs, or, LA film jobs. There's so many groups out there that you can just join, and you'll see the post. Put your notifications on, because that's the number one mistake. If you don't put your notifications on and you're like the 50th person that answers a post to a job, then you're not going to get the job. So it's going to be really, really quick. So Facebook groups is another way to get jobs, and just kind of like, even if something is like something short, they may not be paying someone. If you have the time to volunteer, you're like, this could come to something bigger. You never know. You can meet so many different people on those like passion projects. Get to know actors. A lot of people don't know that actors are producing a lot of their own stuff. So some people are like, well, if I'm not a producer, I don't want to, I don't want to talk to them. Like, everyone is like making their own stuff, And I think one of my last things is, and I say this in one of my videos, and I map it out and I tell everyone exactly how to do it. Go on imdb.com, your movie database. Take one of your, favorite movies that might be a little like lower tier, not like something that's super huge. Find that person on social media, send them a DM, send them a message, send them a tweet or something. You never know who's going to answer. One of the ways I got into this business is I was cold emailing thousands of people when I first started out. And while emailing is not probably a thing that people want to do now, but I mean, that is a way. If you want, find their information, email them, say, hey, I'm new to such and such city. If you have something that you need some help with, or I'm happy to volunteer my time, I just want to learn what's it like to be on set. Just go into it very, very humble, because I mean, you're really asking for a huge favor. And that happened to me, where I was sending email after email, just anyone who could help me start out in New York City. And then I finally got a tip. They were like, go to this building, hand out your resume. And by the grace of God, I got to hand my resume to a physical person. And then I was on set 2 weeks later. It changed my life.
Do you have any additional tips?
There was one thing I wanted to mention about the networking thing that you said, and I never forget what this professor told me in college when I told her that I wanted to be a director of photography, and how I was an AC at the time. She was like,
so what's AC? We've got a lot of acronyms here, and I don't know if I've explained them all.
Oh, yeah, I know, it's so bad. Such the American way. We have an abbreviation for everything. But when I was assistant camera, I was a second AC, second and first assistant camera on certain things at the time when I was still in Buffalo. She told me that a lot of the times in the film industry, they like to pigeonhole you into the same position all the time. So it traditionally, like, yes, you can go from loader to second assistant camera, first assistant camera, camera operator, and then director of photography, right? That takes many, many years to do. I never forgot that, how she said, once you start going into that position, people are like, wow, she's a really good first AC. She's a really good second AC. So you'll just keep getting hired for that same thing over and over and over again. And you really have to make that conscious decision to make sure people know that you want to do, like, you're ready to move up, so talking about positions that you want to be in is also another thing. And just know, when you go from different departments in film, it's like starting over. Like you said about how your contacts change. When I went from the camera department to the AD department, I had no contacts. I had a bunch of camera people that I knew, but then when I switched departments, I had no one that could hire me as, like, a set PA, because all my people that I knew was in camera. Like, so I had to start right from zero. Like, I had to start from scratch again.
Wow. So just going from an AC, assistant camera. To assistant director, you didn't have the same network.
World of difference.
Why?
Because everyone's in their own circle, like all the camera people know each other.
Okay.
All the ADs. And it's kind of like, you may have a lot of people who have like a lot of experience throughout the years. They're like super seasoned, super veteran, and they may know other people in other departments, but those people are already well in their career. They have no problems, right? And they're already set in the position they want. But when you're first starting out, you only know that department. And it's kind of weird, because like when you're on set, you're so involved in your department and what you're doing. It's hard to kind of make sure to get to know everybody else, right? So, I mean, if you're on set, I say make sure you talk to everyone, first of all, to know what they do and what their job is, so you have that level of respect for them. But, you just don't, I mean, it kind of just don't pay attention to all the people you don't really know sometimes when you're first starting out. You're like, oh, should I know this prop master? But you should. I say everyone should. But usually your contacts are in the same department when you're working in them.
So, well, you just basically said a fifth tip right there, right? It's like get to know everybody on set. So, at what point in your career did you actually make that effort? Like, okay, I'm on set here, but I want to learn about the people who take care of props, the people who take care of, X, Y, Z.
I think as an assistant director, I need to know what everyone does, and I need to know who to ask when a certain thing comes up. So once I decided that I had, that I wanted to be a first AD, that was when I was like, I have to make sure I know what a director does. I know what the producers are responsible for. I know what a UPM does. I know what props are responsible for, grip. I had to know, because you can't run a set unless you know what everyone's supposed to be doing, right? And if something comes up, I need to know who to call upon as well. Like, what can the stunts coordinator do versus what the director is supposed to be responsible for, making sure safety and all that is in line on set. So it's for me, it was more of, as an AD, being more responsible, making sure I know what everyone does, because I'm running that set and they have to know that I know what I'm doing and I have to know what they do.
Mhm. So, if you're a producer's assistant and you're brand new, can they do that? Can they start to get to know other people on set, or is that not their place, culturally speaking?
They should. Yeah. I mean, producers, I mean, anyone who's like an assistant of something should be getting to know like how a film set works, what everyone does, because that's the beauty of being a producer's assistant or a set production assistant, even a camera assistant. If you're like, you may be so ingrained, we're like, I want to be in camera, that's my goal. But then like you get to know what other people are responsible for, because you never know when you're on set, like you might have to call upon some, for the dolly, the grips you need. You may need power. So now you got to get to know the electrics. So you have to definitely get to know every department and observe what everyone does. It's only going to just benefit you to just understand how everything works on set. So if you're just entering and you're a producer assistant, director's assistant, or a set production assistant, that is your time to just kind of sit back, observe, and see what everyone does.
Okay, great. And then use that time to network with everybody on
Right.
set. Yeah, especially if there's any quiet time at all. I don't know. Is there quiet time production?
Well, yes. Here's the thing, is that there are definitely ups and downs where it's like completely chaotic and everything's moving and there's crazy moving parts and everything's so fast. And then everything is like really boring. And everyone's just like, nothing is happening because we might be shooting a 5-page scene in an apartment and we're all outside just waiting for the actors to get done with their scene, because there's not a lot of moving parts, right? It's very, very simple setup. So there's like a lot of, you're just sitting waiting for the scene to get done kind of. There is downtime. There are definite downtime. There are some days where it's crazy chaotic
Sure.
all day long, but then there's definite ups and downs as far as like what's happening on set.
So let's transition more into your role as an assistant director. One of the things that I asked you when we last spoke was, do you have the ambition of becoming a director? And your answer was, no, that's not what I want to do.
Right. And I got pretty aggressive with my answer. I apologize
No,
for
I love it.
that. Here's the thing, is that like when I tell people what I do for a living, they're like, oh, when are you going to direct? I'm like, that's not actually the career path, because the one thing I do want to stress is that assistant directors are not the creative side, right? We are the logistical side. We are the scheduling. We are like we're making that puzzle come together. The jigsaw puzzle that is filmmaking. We take everything, we bring it all together and make sure that all the pieces are there so the director can execute his or her vision. So director is like creative. They're deciding yes or no, if they like certain things, if they like that outfit, if they like that backdrop. Is a production design what he imagined or what she imagined. Actor's performance. A lot of people forget about actor's performance. Assistant directors have nothing to do with actor's performance.
You
And
just like get the job done.
right, we're there to make sure that they have the things, they have all the items and the elements that it's called for in the script. They're there on the day when you're ready to shoot and you're ready to roll.
And so that's why you need to know all the departments. Which departments do assistant directors work most closely with?
All of them. Literally every department. Yeah.
Every single one. Okay. So there wouldn't be a difference between the props, the grips, and the location managers.
For the sake of argument, I could say like we work very, very closely with locations to make sure that like we don't get kicked out. We don't get kicked out of that park or that house. We got to make sure we're following all the rules, because in essence, I feel like locations is kind of like we have to make sure we're definitely following those rules, because if we have no location, we're not shooting anything. It's the assistant directors are the bridge between producers, production, and the crew, right? So we are the transition between that. But then also we are like the liaison between the director and the rest of the crew. So we're talking to every department all the time.
And so what inspires you about the logistics more than the creative? And it takes all sorts of people to be on set. Like, some people are passionate about whatever department they're in, but what is it about the AD role that is fun for you?
I love being the leader. And when you're an assistant director, you're really the voice and the leader of the set. And I know as the AD that I can control the vibe. So if I'm having a bad day and I'm barking at people all day long, I'm going to ruin a lot of people's mood. But if I'm upbeat, I'm making jokes, we're getting the job done, I have really good energy, I affect everybody because I am the voice and people are listening to me to make sure they know what to do. I love that. And I love the fact that like, I know all the things that are happening and what should happen. So, and I love the fact that I can break things down very easily for everyone to understand, because I can take in all the information and I'm the filter. So I can be like, okay, I can tell camera what they need to know, nothing more. I can tell, props what they need to know, nothing more, and not complicate everything.
Yeah, you're basically simplifying the process from A to Z.
Right.
So you gave two different scenarios, one where you could potentially be very tough on set, and the other one where you could create a really positive vibe. Maybe you can talk a little bit more about that, about how that's important, because some production sets can be highly toxic, to say the least.
Right.
So I hear.
Right. So right away, filmmaking is very hard. It's challenging. There's so many hours, there's lots of equipment, there's so many pieces. It's a lot happening. And it's stressful because, we could be shooting overnight. It could be cold. We're in the elements. It's already hard, right? Why do I need to be tough on everyone? I want to make sure that people understand what has to get done. And if I have to crack the whip, I will, but that's not my first initial reaction to everybody. It's kind of like this progression. Like, I have to kind of see where the crew is at. I have to make the judgment, like what they need. How are they motivated? A lot of people are not motivated by people just screaming and yelling. Most people aren't. Okay. So then the reason why I feel like it's really, really important to have a positive vibe on set is they'll work for me. If I'm good to them, I respect them, they will work harder for me to get the day done. They know if I can be hard on them, they know I'm just trying to make a short day for them. If the camera crew and everyone understands, like, yes, we have a lot to get done today, but I want to get you guys out of here on time. In my head, I'm like, oh my God, this is a crazy nightmare. And then at the end of the day, they say, that was great. We wrapped early, smooth day. That is like the best compliment for assistant director, because I took in all the things. I was the filter, and then I didn't show them all the crazy things that was happening. Maybe we lost location. Maybe an actor got sick. We had to switch some scenes around or something. You never know what can happen. All kinds of things happen when it comes to production. So going into it with just a good attitude makes the world of difference. And it just makes people work better and more efficient if they're happier.
And it goes back to what you were saying before, is like, give the information that's needed. Like, you don't need to tell somebody who's about to start a camera that you just had a bunch of location issues and they're actually filming in a new location right now. Like
when the time comes, certain information will be revealed. And sometimes, I will give certain information like, hey, we dropped this scene. And some people are like, why? I'll tell people why. And a lot of assistant directors do not like to explain themselves. But like, of course, everyone wants to know why we didn't do that scene, or like, how, if you can share the information, you do.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I try to do when I'm on set, is share the information that I can, because some people are just like, this is happening, and that's it. They don't give any type of explanation why.
So now everybody living in New York is going to want to work with you, Amber. So what's your number one tip for those who are now climbing their way through the Hollywood, New York City, whatever ladder, and and basically they are maybe a PA and they want to shift towards a job like yours and become an assistant director, what would be your number one tip for them?
They have to tell people what their goals are. If you don't talk about your goals with anybody, how is anyone going to help you? You have to express where you're trying to go and maybe ask for people's advice. Like, if I have a number of people who email me through Beyond Film School and they're saying, like, what do I, how do I go about, being a good assistant director? What are your top tips? And first of all, I send them a video if I've already talked about it. But if, like, on a more personal level, they'll tell me like their scenario. And I say, you know what I would do? And sometimes I've even gotten like people say, hey, can you look at the schedule for me? Does this look right? That's like great. I love when like people are who I know are genuinely like looking to be ADs and they just want to be better. And I love that. So talk to people who are in the position that you want to become. So talk to people you want to become and just tell people your goals. And I have a perfect real short story about that, where I was in distribution once upon a time. And the person I worked with, he was making a short film. And before he told me he was making a short film, I talked about how I wanted to be a first AD. And weeks later, he's like, hey, I'm making this short film. Do you want to be my AD? And I'm like,
Wow.
Of course. And if I had not talked about that small goal where we were just like going back and forth with what we want for our future, just a friend at work, he would have never known. And I would have never gotten my first AD day. I would have never got on as assistant director on that short. And that just started everything for me to be an assistant director. So it's just like, talk about the goals that you want to do.
I think that happens a lot in any industry where people are afraid to declare their real ambitions because they're just getting started in the industry or any industry. And then it's like, well, actually, I would really like to do this. I think more often than not, I mean, because people are afraid of saying that. Like, let's say you're working in a company and you want to do something else, that could be a bad signal for your boss, right? Like they could get a hint as you want to get, like in your case, I want to be an
Right.
AD, and you're saying that to somebody you were working in distribution with. They could have hypothetically said, well, you don't really want to do distribution then, do you? Right? It's kind of a risk, but at the same time, I think it's a risk worth taking, because what you'll find is people like the person that hired you gave you a shot because you told them.
Right. A lot of the time when you're in film, your boss, I mean, everyone knows set PAs are trying to figure out their way, or producer's assistants or director's assistants. Like, those are entry level jobs where you have the flexibility to just take a look around. For example, like I had a set PA who was a trainee of mine where she wanted to get in sound, and she's an amazing PA. And she ended up being set PA. She was like the first team runner, which is the PA that works with cast like all the time. And, they tell the actors the play-by-play where they have to be and when they should get ready and all that stuff. But she wanted to be in sound. And once she got that opportunity with sound, the ADs were like, no, you have to finish this job. They're like holding on for her for dear life. And I told her, I'm like, you can leave. This is your life. Don't be bullied into a certain direction. So that's also kind of thing. Some people feel like they owe something to the people who gave them their first job, where it's like, no, you have to do what's right for you in your life. So yes, take the risks, because ultimately I feel like if something happens and someone's like, well, you don't want to be in this department, so bye, which is kind of weird. I don't kind of foresee that sort of thing happening in film. But yeah, I definitely take the risks. I wouldn't worry about, oh, well, you don't want to be in this. And a lot of people who get started, they don't know what they want to do. And that's fine. That's totally fine.
Before we kind of end this conversation, how can people find out more about you? Because you've got Beyond Film School, which now has over 10,000 YouTube subscribers. Beyond Film School is also a workshop company. So congratulations on all
Thank
that.
you.
How can people reach you?
So everyone can just go to my website, beyondfilmschool.com. I have everything there. Also search Beyond Film School on YouTube, but on my website, beyondfilmschool.com, you will find all the things like the resume workshop I have, the set PA classes that I have, all of it's there, all the videos I have, and all the blog posts I share about certain things I want to share as far as the film industry is concerned.
Well, this has been great because, again, normally I don't talk about the production side of things. Perhaps the people in distribution were wannabes. We would love to be on the production side of things, but we get involved in a completely different way. So this has been great for me to learn more about how things work on set, and also inspire other people on how you can get started no matter where you are in life, and how you can go from Buffalo to LA and back to New York and back to New York State, but in New York City, and basically build a career for yourself from scratch. So thank you so much.
Thank you. And also, without distribution, we wouldn't be making anything. So no one would be watching our stuff without distribution.
That is partly true.
We need you.
Well, and that goes back to what you were saying before. It's like every single piece of the production industry, in your case, a production set, but then there's other pieces beyond that as well, right? And people have to get these things in theaters, and people have to get these things on DVDs, if people still do that. People still do that. It's weird.
We still get DVD screenings for the Oscars, so DVDs are still a thing. Just letting you know.
It's weird. There's too much streaming now for me. All right, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
And that concludes today's episode of Global VID. Thanks to my guest Amber Sherman, my editor Nicola Maida, and our theme song composers Amber Goodwin and Aaron Ross. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.